For 11 months, my grandfather didn't say my name. After the stroke, the doctor said the words were still in there somewhere. Locked behind a door his brain could no longer open. He understood everything. He just couldn't get the language back out. He raised me. My parents were always working, always traveling, so it was my grandfather who taught me to fish, who walked me to school, who sat in the front row at every clumsy school play. He was the loudest, warmest man I knew. The kind who told the same stories at every holiday and laughed hardest at his own jokes. So when the stroke took his speech, it wasn't just a medical fact. It was like someone had unplugged the sound from the most important person in my life. The therapist worked with him for months. Flashcards, exercises, repetition. He'd grip the table in frustration when a simple word wouldn't come, his eyes filling with a kind of rage and grief I'd never seen on him before. Relatives stopped visiting as much. They didn't know how to sit with the silence. Some of them talked about him like he wasn't in the room, like the man inside had gone somewhere too. I hated that more than anything. I never asked him to talk. I'd just pull a chair up beside his and say, "You don't have to say anything. I'll talk enough for both of us." And I would. I'd narrate my whole day, read him the sports pages, describe the neighbor's ridiculous new truck. When aunts whispered that maybe he didn't really understand anymore, I'd look them dead in the eye and say, "He understands every word. He's just choosing not to waste them on people who give up on him." He'd squeeze my hand when I said things like that. That was our language now. Squeezes. Looks. The small grammar of someone who knows you. We had a ritual from before the stroke. Every Sunday we'd watch the same old black and white westerns he loved, and at the end of every one he'd point at the screen and say his catchphrase, the thing he'd said my whole life, "That's how a good man finishes." After the stroke I kept playing the movies anyway. I'd pause at the end and wait, and he'd just look at me, and I'd say it for him. "That's how a good man finishes, right, Papa?" He'd nod, eyes wet. For his birthday that year, I wanted to give him something real. I spent weeks at night after homework restoring the old fishing tackle box he'd taught me with, the one rusted shut in the garage for years. I sanded it, repainted it the exact faded green it used to be, fixed every hinge. But inside, instead of lures, I filled the little compartments with our life. A photo of the two of us on the lake when I was 6, a folded note listing everything he'd taught me, the first fishing fly he ever helped me tie, laminated so it would last, and in the bottom tray, taped down, a card that just said, "Finish this with me." On his birthday, after the few relatives who came had gone home, it was just us in the living room like always. I put on his favorite western. I handed him the tackle box in silence. His hands shook as he opened it, tracing each compartment, and when he reached the photo, his face crumpled, and the tears came freely. He got to the card. "Finish this with me." He looked at me, confused. I waited until the final scene of the movie, the hero riding off, the music swelling. I paused it right at the end, the way we always did, and I looked at him and waited, the way I'd waited for 11 months, not pushing, just leaving the door open. He stared at the frozen screen. His mouth worked, his jaw trembled with effort, and then, in a voice rusty and cracked and barely above a whisper, the first words in almost a year, my grandfather said, "That's how a good man finishes." I stopped breathing. He turned to me, as shocked as I was, tears streaming down both our faces. "You talked," I choked out. "Papa, you talked." He reached for my hand and squeezed it hard, and this time the words came with it, slow and broken but unmistakable. "For you," he whispered, "always, for you." I fell into his arms and sobbed, not from fear, not from grief, but because for the first time since that terrible morning, I had him back. Not all of him, not fixed, but here, reaching for me through the silence the way he always had. His speech never fully returned. Some days he has only a handful of words, but every Sunday at the end of the movie, he saves the best ones for me.